Your home should be your sanctuary, but right now it could actually be poisoning you slowly. I'm Antoni, founder and director of an award-winning sustainability-first commercial cleaning company operating across nearly 100 sites. And I am here to tell you about 12 common things I would never have in my home. I am covering everyday cleaning products packed with volatile organic compounds, all the way to luxury installations like log burners, scoring each one on their health and environmental impact, including one kitchen item that's leaching carcinogens into your dinner. Let's start in the cleaning product section. We have got one of my least favorite to start with. And I mean that. If I open a cleaning cupboard in someone's home and I saw this, I would want to have a conversation. Bleach. Thick, thin bleach, mold sprays. Bleach, it is in almost every home in the country. And the reason I dislike it so much is not that it does not do anything. It is that it does something very different to what most people think it does. The active ingredient is sodium hypochlorite. It is what scientists call a respiratory sensitizer. That means every time you spray it, you're making your lungs more sensitive to dust, pollen, and other irritants. Not just in the moment, over time. When you spray bleach, it reacts with the world around it and it releases VOCs into the air. Volatile organic compounds. They hang around in the room long after you have finished cleaning. You're actually still breathing them into your lungs while you're making your coffee the next morning. But it is the only thing that gets rid of mold. Well, that's actually a myth. When you spray bleach on mold and it goes white, you think you have killed it. You have not. You have bleached it, you have removed the color. The roots, which scientists call hyphae, go deep into porous surfaces like the grout and the silicon. Bleach cannot reach them, so the mold comes back every single time, often faster and stronger than before. I have made a full video on why bleach is not what it claims to be and what actually works instead. The link is up here. The numbers. Health, I gave it score 2 out of 10. Environment, 1 of 10. How common? 10 of 10. 2. Washing up liquid and the foam trap. You know the ones? The bottle that promise mountains of bubbles and say they cut through grease next to every kitchen sink in the country. A bit more nuanced than the other ones in this list. Not the most dangerous thing here by a long way. But there are two kind of major issues that I think are worth knowing. And one of them affects poor little fishes. The first is the foam. That foaming or bubbles you get with the common washing up liquids is actually caused by something called SLS. Sodium lauryl sulfate. And here is something pro cleaners know that most people do not. Foam does not clean anything. The actual cleaning is done by the surfactants underneath the bubbles. A tower of foam just makes rinsing harder. You end up using more water to get rid of the soap than you use to do the actual washing up. Which brings me to point 2. When SLS goes down the drain and into the rivers and oceans, it strips the protective slime from fish's skin. That slime is their immune system. It is what stops them getting infections. So, SLS makes them vulnerable. So, where does it land? Health, 6 out of 10. Environment, 3 out of 10. How common? 10 out of 10. 3. Aerosols, cleaning sprays and deodorants. Next up is basically all aerosols. And yeah, I know this covers a lot of products. Your kitchen sprays, bathroom cleaners, deodorant, but you're gonna want to know this. The problem is the particle size. You probably know this or don't care, but aerosols use liquefied gas to push the liquid out as a mist. And the droplets created are so small that they go straight past the hairs in your nose that are supposed to filter things out directly into your lungs. They travel straight down into your alveoli. Those are the tiny air sacs deep in your lungs where oxygen enters your blood. And obviously, this is really not good. A 20 years Norwegian study of over 6,000 people found that regular exposure to spray cleaning products caused the same lung damage as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day for 20 years. And while most modern aerosols no longer contains the ozone damaging CFSs of the 1980s, the gas still has a global warming effect. Plus, you have a non-recyclable pressure can at the end of it. Wonderful! Switch to trigger sprays or a concentrated tablet. Same results, none of the cloud of death. Here is how it rates. Health, 3 out of 10. Environment, 2 out of 10. How common? 9 out of 10. 4. Disposable wipes, flushable wipes, and Swiffer-style mop heads. Okay, next up is flushables and disposable wipes and Swiffer-style mop heads, which I'm putting together because they are versions of the same problem. And I'm sure you can predict what I'm going to say here. They're all single-use products made from plastic, sold to us as convenient, but are causing serious harm to the water system despite what Conrad from marketing has been allowed to write on the packaging. Most cleaning wipes and Swiffer-style mop heads are not cloth. They are synthetic or man-made plastic fibers woven together to feel like fabric. They never biodegrade. They break into microplastics that ends up in rivers, the ocean, and eventually our food. Yummy. Even flushable wipes get my big red stamp of disapproval. They just don't break down like toilet paper does, and they wreak havoc on the sewers. More on flushable wipes in this video. So, the professional swap is washable microfiber cloths. High quality microfiber physically grabs bacteria and dirt using tiny hooks in the weave, washing up to 500 times. Then replace it. The score: health 7 out of 10, environment 1 out of 10, how common 9 of 10. 5. Fabric softener. This next one's going to upset a lot of families, I'm afraid. It feels like one of those harmless nice extras. Your clothes come out smelling amazing. They feel so soft. So, what is the problem with fabric softener, Antoni? The softness is not real. It's not actually making the fabric softer, it is a coating. Fabric softeners use compounds called quats, which is short for quaternary ammonium compounds, that deposit a tiny waxy layer of oil onto your clothing and towels. The chemical layer is what makes it feel soft. The problem is that the layer also makes your towel water resistant, which basically makes them worse at their main job. More seriously, quats are endocrine disruptors, which actually interferes with your body's hormone system. Quats are like fake news that confuse your body. And those chemicals go down your drain with every wash. They are not fully removed by the water treatment. They build up in the environment. So, how do I keep my laundry soft? White wine vinegar in the softener drawer. 1/4 of a cup, that is what I use. And no, it doesn't come out smelling like fish and chips. So, how bad it is really? Health 3 out of 10, environment 3 out of 10, how common 8 out of 10. 6. Loo Blocks. Now, before we talk about what actually removes mold but doesn't kill you in the process, these are the blocks you hang on inside of your toilet cistern or bowl. They turn the water blue and make it smell of something approximating a pine forest. Well, a pine forest in a dystopian future where the stench of suffering is all around. Anyway, what these actually do is sit in your cistern in constant contact with the rubber seals and valves. The chemicals are corrosive. They eat the rubber slowly, and when those seals fail, you get a silent leak. Your toilet runs constantly. You might not hear it, but your water meter certainly does. A leaking toilet can waste thousands of liters of water and cost hundreds of pounds before anyone notices. The chemicals themselves then flush into the water system every time you use the toilet. They are not designed with wastewater treatment in mind. They're designed to look impressive in the bowl, and don't get me started on the splashback. If you want to keep your toilet clean, honestly, a brush and a proper product twice a week will do the job without destroying the mechanism or the planet. Quick questions before we move on. Which of those surprised you most? Drop it in the comments right now. I genuinely want to know whether it is the one I expect. And the damage? Health 4 out of 10, environment 2 out of 10. How common? 6 out of 10. Now, before we move into the home upgrade sections, I need to stop and talk about mold. Not a product, but it is something that absolutely belongs in this video because most people are dealing with it wrong. Mold is a living organism, and it is a far more serious health threat than most people realize. The spores it releases are like seeds, tiny, invisible. You breathe them in without knowing. But the part that really matters is the mycotoxins. They are the chemical weapons mold uses to protect itself. When mold feels threatened, and spraying it with bleach absolutely counts as a threat, it fires millions of mycotoxins into the air. If you scrub dry mold, you are releasing a cloud of those toxins directly at your face. To deal with mold without the artillery barrage of mycotoxins, dump the area first. Always. Never dry scrub mold. And as I said earlier, bleach does not kill the roots. You need a product that actually penetrates the surface. I covered this in full in my bleach video, along with what actually works. If you have mold in your home and it keeps coming back, that is not a cleaning product. That is a ventilation or a moisture problem. The mold is telling you something is wrong with the building. Treat the cause, not just the surface. Right, cleaning products done, mold covered. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because the next section is not about what you clean with, it is about the things you bought to make your home feel nicer, more relaxing, more like sanctuary. And several of them are doing something to your air quality that the packaging will never tell you. 7. Plug-in air fresheners. The Wix Airs, the Ambipure, the ones that sit in a socket and pump fragrance into the room continuously. I would absolutely not have one in my home. To make synthetic fragrance last, manufacturers use something called fixatives. And one of the most common fixative is formaldehyde. Yes, the same chemical used to preserve specimens in jars. It is what makes the scent cling to the air rather than dispersing naturally. It is also a known carcinogen. These devices also emit VOCs, volatile organic compounds, the same category of chemicals that come off aerosols and that I mentioned in the Norwegian smoking study. Long-term, low-level exposure to VOCs in an enclosed space is not a small thing. Open a window, get a house plant. Both of those are free. The numbers: health 2 out of 10, environment 4 out of 10, how common 8 out of 10. 8. Cheap scented candles and incense sticks. I know this next one is also going to upset a lot of people. Scented candles. Now, I want to be precise here because not all candles are equal. Beeswax and soy candles burn cleanly and I have no particular issue with them. Cheap paraffin candles are a different story. Paraffin is a petroleum product. Burning it is like running a tiny diesel engine in your living room. It produces soot, carbon compounds and more VOCs. Now, incense is actually worse. Burning incense creates what scientists call indoor smoke. It releases PM 2.5 particles. Those are tiny breathable pollutants, small enough to get deep into your lungs and then into your bloodstream. Studies have found that indoor incense use produces more particulate matter than cigarette smoke in the same space, which is mad. If you like candles and you burn one occasionally for an evening, that is a low risk that most people can make peace with. If incense or cheap candles are a daily habit in a room you spend a lot of time in, it is worth knowing what you are breathing. Is a bit of Zen really worth the health risk? So, where does it land? Health 2 out of 10, environment 3 out of 10, how common? 7 out of 10. Air fryers and Teflon coated products. So, at the start of this video, I mentioned a very common kitchen product that leaches carcinogens into your food. It is a product that most families use to cook every meal in the last few years. What do you think I'm gonna say? Pause the video and pop your guess in the comments. Okay, If you guessed air fryers, then congratulate yourself, but also think carefully before you use one again, because there are two things about them I think you should know. Most air fryer baskets use PTFE. You might know it better as Teflon or a non-stick coating. When that coating gets scratched, which happens far more easily with metal utensils or abrasive cleaning, or even when it gets too hot, it starts releasing PFAS, forever chemicals. They are called that because the chemical bond is one of the strongest in nature. The body cannot break it down, and it accumulates. PFAS have been linked to disruption of the immune system, liver damage, and like the quotes from your fabric softener, hormonal effects. They're being taken incredibly seriously by regulators, and a number of countries are moving to restrict or ban them. The second issue is acrylamide. When you cook starchy foods, potatoes, bread, anything in that family at high heat until they go dark brown, or if you're a bit chefy, the Maillard effect, a chemical called acrylamide forms. It is a natural reaction. It happens in ovens too, but air fryers cook very fast and very hot, and it is easy to take things further than you meant to. Acrylamide has been shown to cause cancer, but only in animal studies. Evidence in humans is inconclusive. So, it's a risk that you need to be willing to take. How bad it really is. Health, 5 out of 10. Environment, 3 out of 10. How common? 9 out of 10. If you insist of using an air fryer, keep the coating completely unscratched. Do not overheat it and pull your food out before it gets very dark. If the basket coating is damaged, replace the basket or the fryer immediately. So, I promised 3 sections, and we have covered cleaning products and little upgrades that are supposed to make your home nicer. The last section is different. These are not cheap products. Some of them cost thousands of pounds. Some of them are considered status purchases. And the conversations around their real impact almost never happens at the point of sale. 10. Log burners and open fireplaces. Log burners are having a moment. I understand the appeal completely. There is something genuinely wonderful about a real fire in your house. But the health data on them is really difficult to argue with. Log burners are the single biggest source of PM 2.5 pollution. That's those tiny breathable particles inside UK homes. And the idea that closing the door of the burner contains the problem is not entirely true. Even well-fitted modern log burner leak microscopic particles into the room and straight into your lungs. These particles are small enough to enter your bloodstream. They are linked to heart disease, lung disease, and stroke. And unlike the occasional incense stick, a log burner is the regular use. During winter, represents sustained, repeatable exposure over months. Carbon monoxide is the other risk. Incomplete combustion, which is very normal in a domestic fire, produces carbon monoxide. A CO2 detector is not optional if you have a log burner. It is non-negotiable. I am not going to tell you to rip out your log burner, but I would say use it less than you want to, make sure your flue is properly maintained, and have a CO2 detector in the room. And the damage? Health, 1 out of 10. Environment, 2 out of 10. How common? 4 out of 10. 11. Gas hobs and gas ovens. This next one is getting more attention from researchers in the last few years, and the findings are not comfortable. It is the simple gas stove. Gas stoves release nitrogen dioxide. A study published in a major international journal found that children living in homes with gas stoves have 42% higher risk of developing asthma. That is not a small number. That is not a fringe finding. It is being replicated in multiple studies across multiple countries. The risk is higher when the kitchen is small, when the ventilation is poor, and when the cooker is used frequently, which in most family homes describes the situation accurately. If you have a gas hob, use your extractor fan every single time you cook, even if you are just boiling water. Especially if you are frying or roasting. That one habit changes your exposure significantly. The longer term picture from both a health and environmental perspective is moving clearly towards induction. The technology has improved enormously. It is faster than gas, more energy efficient, and the air quality comparison is not even close. So, the numbers for the gas stoves. Health, 4 out of 10. Environment, 4 out of 10. How common, 7 out of 10. 12. Essential oil diffusers. Okay, the very last one is going to surprise like 98% of you. It is essential oils. Essential oils are natural, they come from plants. How can they possibly be a problem? The issue is not the oil, it is the vaporization. When you heat or ultrasonic diffuse essential oils into the air, you are creating VOCs. Plant-derived VOCs, but VOCs nonetheless. Your lungs respond to the particle size and concentrations, not to whether the source was a plant or a factory. At low concentrations and in well-ventilated rooms, the risk is low. But there is a category of exposure that most people have not considered. Several essential oils, including tea tree and eucalyptus, are actually toxic to cats and dogs when inhaled in a closed room over time. If you have pets and you run a diffuser in a room they sleep in, this is absolutely worth knowing. And if you do not clean your diffuser regularly, the water reservoir grows biofilm. This is a colony of bacteria. The machine then aerosols that bacteria directly into the air along with the oil. Not the relaxing experience the box promises, right? Clean your diffuser every week. Yes, I said week. Use it in ventilated room. And if you have cats or dogs, do your research on which oils are safe before you run it. Here is how it rates. Health, 5 out of 10. Environment, 6 out of 10. How common? 6 out of 10. Now, I want to say something clearly. This is not about living in fear of your own cupboard. It is about making informed decisions. Some of those things carry serious risk and the swap is easy and cheap. Some of them, like the log burners or the gas hob, are not things people are going to change overnight. But knowing the risk means you can manage it better and live in a safer, purer home. The point is always the same. You cannot make a better decision than the information you have. And the cleaning and home products industry is never in a rush to give you the full picture, for obvious reasons. If there is something in your home that you want me to look into, drop it in the comments. I read all of them. If you want more content that cuts through the noise and tells you what actually works in sustainability and cleaning, subscribe. And if you want to apply any of this thinking in your building or your business, you can book a call with me. The link is in the description. I am Antoni from EQ Drift. Thanks for watching.